Whether your client lives with both of their biological parents or has just been placed in a foster home, you're probably going to need to work with their caregivers on parenting. Remember, you may be doing parenting sessions for a colleague, or a colleague may be doing parenting sessions for you so you can maintain your alliance with your client. Or you may be working with the parents of your own client. In your first parenting session, you'll want to review the parts of the brain, what your client's triggers are and what they look like in practice, how being triggered affects their ability to process, and how their sleep disturbance will also be affecting their behavior and capacity to learn new behavior. Many parents, particularly foster parents, take their child's trauma symptoms personally. It's very important to normalize the trauma symptoms and communicate clearly that they are not personal. There are a few basic behavior principles that we'll be teaching the parents we work with. The first is always to identify the function of the behavior. Kids will rarely engage in a behavior without positive intent. It can be challenging to figure out what that is sometimes. For example, if your client picks a fight every time they're triggered, is it because they get sent to their room when they pick a fight and they can be away from whatever's triggering them without having to talk about it? Once you know the function of the behavior, you can replace the behavior with something pro-social, or you can find a way to give them what it is they're trying to get with the behavior without them having to use the behavior to get it. The second principle is to delay correction until everyone is calm. Usually you're having to unteach parents that consequences must be immediate. Parents simply need to be reminded that higher brain functions aren't available when everyone's emotionally flooded. So it's important to wait until everyone's calmed down to process and debrief after an incident. It's totally okay for a caregiver to tell a child, "I'm really upset right now, so we're going to talk about this later." Principle number 3 is to prioritize the relationship over other concerns. Particularly teenagers, but any child needs a strong relationship in order to want to behave. It helps to explain to parents that a relationship is like a bank account. You build it up and build it up and build it up, and then you can dip into it when you need to. With a child, you build up your savings by doing bonding and relationship building activities, and then you can spend those savings correcting their behavior. And when the relationship has been damaged, it's important to repair first before continuing to break it. And the fourth principle is that our primary role is to teach children how to behave, not scare them into behaving the way we want. When a child does not know how to talk, we teach. When a child does not know how to do math, we teach. When a child does not know how to behave, we punish. Because the word discipline means to learn. It doesn't mean to punish. If you have a particularly authoritarian parent, these concepts might be difficult for them to understand. It can be helpful to couch them as interventions that are specifically for their traumatized child. An important concept for parents and children to understand is consequences, both positive and negative, long and short-term consequences, which stem from our choices. Children should understand that every behavior is a choice, and when they make a choice, they choose all the consequences that come from it, ones they want and ones they don't want. So then, if the child is upset about their consequences, the caregiver can reply, "I'm sorry you don't like your choice." Parents can get really hung up on tell the truth, admit what you did, But sometimes it's better if they just say, I know what you did. I don't need you to tell me. Here's what's going to happen as a consequence. Because forcing a traumatized child to be vulnerable is really counterproductive to their trauma therapy. This is especially true if a child has just been placed in the caregiver's home. Many foster parents I've worked with have struggled with wanting the child to be accountable, which is something you can work on in therapy once the trauma symptoms have reduced. If parents are doing everything right, but all of this is a big change from their usual parenting style, they will likely experience an extinction burst. This is where the child's behavior escalates in response to the new intervention before it drops off. An example of this is if a child usually gets what they want when they throw a tantrum. If the parents start ignoring the tantrums, the child will throw worse tantrums in an effort to get what they want. But if the parents continue ignoring, eventually the child will give up on the tantrums and try something else. Reframing the child's behavior is a powerful tool when you're working with frustrated parents. My child is not giving me a hard time. My child is having a hard time is a powerful insight for parents who just are so frustrated with their children.